Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining Performance Analytics in the Academy session that we have going on today. My name is Thomas Davis and I am the host. And like it said in the invitation, this is going to be a Q&A session. So real quick, some logistical things that we can get out of the way, and then we can get right into hopefully answering some questions for people. So just like any other call, even though this is a Q&A session, it is still, pertinent information that you need to know. This is for you, and especially when we're having Q&A, even more so for you than maybe in the past. So please come and ask your questions, and make sure that you put those in the Q&A section rather than the chat. That way that everybody can see them or whatnot. So just know this is for you, and hopefully we can give some good practical guidance based around some of the questions that come in today. This will be recorded, and we will put it out on the community later on this afternoon. And of course, it'll be on YouTube, on our YouTube channel as well. So look for it to be there also. And again, obviously, this is a Q&A section, Academy, I'm sorry. So all of this is going to be about Q&A. So make sure, again, that you put those questions in the Q&A window. So again, this is what we're going to talk about today. And who I have with me, and I think that some of them, or maybe we have them all on now. Awesome. So my name is Thomas Davis, and I'm the host / panelist as well. I'll answer questions if I can. And with me, I have quite a few gurus and people that really know performance analytics and reporting and many other things as well. So I'm excited to have so many of my colleagues that jumped on this call, so we can make sure that we can give the attendance that it needs for Q&A. So today we have Dan Kane and Tara Romero, Adam Stout, Rakina, Brkdwn, and Lavidja, and some of the bottom three are across the pond. So I appreciate them jumping on in this late hour. But again, we have really good people on that can help. So real quickly, the agenda is first I'm going to talk about a couple of the more popular community questions that we've seen in the past 6 months. Just a few of them, not a whole lot of them, because we did want to make sure that we give enough time to, open Q&A set, and answer type things. But again, I think that there's some that are out there that we could talk about real quickly. So with that, one that comes up quite often is date range filter in a dashboard. So this is something that has been asked for quite a bit for many years, is to be able to put a start and an end time rather than having to select a predefined time period. So there are ways of doing this, and you can see over to the right in that window, you can see that this is a post or an answer that somebody actually put to a question similar to this. This one was about 7 months ago. The question that was referenced, or the answer that was referenced in this, was actually for a question many years ago. So you can see there's a lot of scripting in there in order to make this happen. And this is probably not the only way that you could do something like this. But the great thing about, ServiceNow evolving and, with new releases coming out, is that this is now something that's going to be out of the box that you can do yourself. So when you get into the NowExperience dashboards, a date filter like this is achievable now. It is something that comes out of the box. And, we actually have had a couple Academy sessions not too long ago that actually talked about not only NowExperience, but also NowExperience filters, and then business calendars, reporting, formatting, function fields, all new things that came in Quebec. So with that, just know that the idea of having to do a really long, granular type option of getting date filters into dashboards, well, now once you get to NowExperience Quebec and on, that you actually have the ability to do that. However, if you're not there yet and you're not at that release, there are options that are out there that you can use in order to achieve the same thing. So I got some noises in the background. Let me see if I can't turn the sounds off here. Sorry about that. Yeah, I can't figure that out. That's okay. So the next thing that I want to talk about is a question that comes up actually quite often. It's around the idea of either someone leaving the company or an organization, and they have particular things that are assigned to them. Maybe they created them, or it got associated with them at some point from maybe somebody else that left the company or left and went to a different organization within the company or whatnot. So, transferring ownership of dashboards is something that gets asked quite a bit. So there are ways of doing this. I mean, obviously the most simplistic way is just simply going to the dashboard properties of a dashboard and actually changing it there. Now, I know that I have seen other questions in the community where people have wanted to do bulk ownership change outs. And I know that there's some answers out there for that. But again, this is something that comes up quite a bit. And there's a couple different ways that you can do different things. And here is another example where an employee is leaving a company. And, this was actually this would have been 13 days ago that we're asking this same sort of question. And the answer that came out was basically given docs and community blogs that were already out there on how to do these types of things. So what does this highlight is that, obviously there's many ways that you can do, particular things like this. But what's really good about these particular questions is that the answers were already in the community. So one of the things that I always say at the end of these academy sessions is to make sure that, when you have a question, seek out the community first, see what you're able to find. Maybe the answer is already out there. And these are two great examples of a very similar question in nature from the past 6 months or a little bit over 6 months that the answers were actually in the community. So, and I don't know if anybody on the panel, I think this is probably one that maybe if somebody wants to talk to a little bit more, because I'm sure that people that are on the panel, the panelists have seen questions like this or, in the past or whatnot, even talked about it. But this is something that, is out there a lot. And I know that there is talks that, doing some things in future releases that will make some of these things automated. So hopefully in the future, these types of things will be, a little bit simpler. But I'll take a quick pause for about 5 seconds in case there's anybody on the panel that wants to speak to this about an easier way or another way or anything like that. Does anybody on the panel want to speak to it?
So I'll add in that it might be easier in the future, but it can be easy now. If I use flow designer and a service catalog item, I think it's good to figure out what do you want to have, what permissions make sense to have, and whether it's somebody leaving the company or somebody I just need to transfer, I'm changing roles, to go, well, what is it that we want to have happen? And put a catalog item in, right? Let's say I want Adam's leaving the team. I want everything to move over to Thomas. Just have a catalog item that does that. Have some choices. You want to move dashboards, reports, a couple different use cases you might want to work through, what approvals you want to have happen. And then you can do it all with no code, just clicking through what you want in Flow Designer and build that out so you have a nice standard process.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, workflows are awesome. Whenever you can build those out, they make it really nice. So one other thing real quick that I want to kind of talk to, and then we'll get into the actual, asking questions is, although this particular example talks about ITSM, this is a question that I do see quite often is, what comes out of the box as it relates to the different releases and then, the different, sections of, ServiceNow or whatnot. And here is another, a great answer that came, and it's a very simple answer that just pointed them directly to the doc site. So what we try to do as part of the PAR group and me specifically in managing the academies is to make sure that when a new release comes out that we'll have an academy session around what is new, whether it be features or solutions or whatnot. But just know that always in the docs, the information is there for every new release that comes out. Anything that has been updated or added or anything like that, all of that is in the doc site. So definitely recommend that you go there. And the great thing about this is there may already be something created for something that you need to do. So I would definitely recommend that you go and look at what comes out of the box. And it may be, something, a plugin or whatnot that you may have to get, turned on inside of your instance, but there may be something there. So I think it just makes really good sense to go and look in the docs first. And then, like I said, always generally when releases come out. So it's generally in the September, October timeframe from an academy perspective. We'll always have a session, and actually this year, because Rome had quite a bit, we had to have 2 sessions. So a lot of great information. But again, I see these questions quite often in the community, and just know that there's a lot of resources that are out there. It just takes a little bit of digging by going to the ServiceNow docs, and then again, the academy session, and then the community as well. So just remember that if there's certain things that you're looking for to make life easier for you. So with that, so real quick, I just want to put a couple or a ground rule down real quick about the Q&A, because this is exciting, because we really get an idea of things that our customers needs, and also it could drive some ideas of other things. But just know that, you know, we'll answer these questions, and some of these may be typed, some of them may be done live. But what we want to try to do is try to commit, if we can, to 5 minutes from an answer perspective to a particular question. That way we can get as many in. Now, if there's not a lot of questions coming in and something, you know, we can put a little bit more time on something, then we'll manage that and go from there. So with that, and I know that a couple of my colleagues have kind of been monitoring. So let's see if we can get into the first one. And it's from Daniel. And Daniel actually asked us in the chat first, and he moved it over. And he did direct it at Adam. I don't know if Adam wants to answer it or not, but we'll see. But the question is there a way to use the dependency assessment tool to build a list of elements and use this to create an update set? So I don't know who wants to answer that. Adam, he asked for you, but you may.
Adam's got it.
Tara's got it.
No, Adam's got it.
Oh, Adam's got it. Okay, go.
So, Adam. We already talked about that.
Okay, good.
So for this one, I think it can be done. Out of the box, it doesn't do it. The dependency assessment is an API to come through, so you could do that. I will tell you, I get scared about some of that stuff doing it retroactively, because I'm afraid about collisions, particularly with PA. We've had tools like this in the past that just grabbed everything having to do with a dashboard, but then you have to worry about how far do you go, what all did you change, and if I have a dashboard, then I have the reports, and I have the table, and I have for performance analytics, I have the indicator and the indicator source and the job. And what if I change the time of the job for my testing? There's just so much that goes on in my mind that it worries me to do something like this. I think it's useful to see it. And if you did push to do an update set, you just have to go one at a time. You have to figure out how far you want to go, what types of things you want to include, and then you have to manually reconcile them. I think it is much safer to do it with an update set. Just get in the habit of building with an update set. And with the enhancements with source control, I'll tell you, I went through pretty recently to really jump on the source control wagon with ServiceNow. And I just create an app and I check it in source control, whether it's my global app or it's a scoped app. I actually like using scoped apps for most of what I can do. I put it in source control, and then I have my different versions. Like on different instances, I can have different branches. I can see those collisions. I have comments in, forces me to put a commit comment in. I think there's a lot to do with it. And I would just be very nervous about putting a lot of investment in trying to get this to work with creating an update set rather than fixing my process. So I have everything in an update set initially on what I did change. And then I can just review those changes. But just grabbing everything, you're going to end up stepping on something that's in production when you move forward. I don't know if anybody else wants to add into that, but again, I would say it can be done. There's an API and there's some really cool things can be done, but it's not super simple to just do it. And there would be risks in doing it that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam, for that. So the next one that we have in is, please talk about current reporting in PA versus NowExperience cutover, transitions needs by the business, training, developers, and users. Robert John, you want to grab this one?
Robert, Jan, and I are going to grab this one.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So Robert, jump in anytime. Dima, we are aware, very well aware that performance analytics isn't a standalone product, right? It works with whatever other products you have purchased with ServiceNow. So we're trying to figure out the best transition for your reporting environment. Any administrative work you have with performance analytics, we don't have that solution yet. We are working on coming up with different user scenarios and determining what's going to be the best strategy for you. We are very well aware that this will be a huge impact. So we want to make sure that we don't just rush into anything. So we're looking at maybe a couple more releases before we have the actual transition plan for you and the recommendations. Over the next maybe few months, we should be able to start providing a little bit more education on what we think is going to work best for you. But we want to make, like I said, we want to make sure that we do our due diligence and really come up with something that's going to work for the most of you. I don't know, Robert, if you want to jump in.
No, well, the only thing that I can add there, Tara, and to more that had the question, there was actually also a question that I answered in the Q&A through text that was sort of related, like, hey, how is this thing working with performance analytics and the NowExperience? Is performance analytics being deprecated or replaced? That's definitely not the case. It's indeed, as Tara mentioned, we are currently in this transitioning phase. We have the NowExperience, the platform, which is the new UI framework that comes with a more future-proof, more stable tech stack that allows for a much more experience building, also in a low-code kind of way. For us as a platform team, the way we look at it is our capabilities need to be there. That for sure, because our current customers expect our capabilities there. The way I, as a product manager, look at it is it doesn't just needs to be like feature completed. Where possible, it needs to be feature improved. So immediately look at your ask in like enhancement requests and community sessions like this. What can we immediately improve to make something better? And it allows for a lot of like smooth integration with the workflows itself. So that's also our journey together with the workflow teams as the apps, the workflows are building their experiences also within that NowExperience platform to be as performance analytics part of that. So on one hand, you'll still have the options over there and hopefully they're even improved. On the other hand, also expect capabilities to be more and more integrated, more and more embedded within the workflow itself. And that's a journey that we're taking together with the workflow teams, and indeed we'll take a few releases.
Yeah. And Robert, real quick, just to jump on that, since we're talking about the NowExperience, can you answer this? All new PA functionality will only be in the new UI and nothing is being added to the current UI. Is that the message that we're...
I think it's the sort of the guidance, but it does not mean it's fixed. I think we take it with every part, like, okay, where does this make sense? There are also many things that basically that we do as capabilities that will run on both. Anything that we do backend or performance or stability wise that will immediately benefit both. But we're taking them by the need and by the feature. Mostly it is because also the new platform allows for a much better and a much more improved way of how to handle things. Most likely it will be there within the NowExperience platform.
Right. Some of the bigger asks that have been a bit challenging with the existing platform will be easier for us to put into the new experience.
Exactly for that reason. We weren't able to do some of those things because of the sort of core UI capabilities that came out of the box. And we do have that opportunity now.
Awesome. Cool. Does that hoping that answers your question, Anonymous?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you both. I think we were able to knock out a few questions there. So the next one is, how can I group by created month in a multi-level pivot? And then there was another one that came in that Adam's going to speak to as well, that was how to increase the number of columns in multi-level pivot tables as well. So Adam can hopefully address both of those. Go ahead, Adam, whenever you're ready.
Well, we'll start with the adding columns. You can't. I think you have five columns to group by, and then the rows. But that's all you have. The choices we have are the choices we have in terms of number of fields, and I know they are limited. You can't do an infinite number. In Classic, I actually don't know how that moves forward in NowExperience. So Brkdwn might be able to talk about that visualization. But in Classic, I am not aware of any way you can add more fields, more columns than are what are there today. But I want to get to the happy one, which is about how do I group by month in a multi-level pivot. This one has pained me for quite some time. How to do it, and it's really simple when it comes down to it. I think once we get into Quebec, you can do it. And I did this really recently. I was using function fields. So function fields, we did a session on, I think over the summer. We talked about what we can do in Report Designer. Can't do it in the old Report Builder, but Report Designer, I create function fields. And what I did was took a date field, and the date fields are stored in the database in year dash month dash day. And so I created a function field which just truncated that to the first 7 characters. So I got a 4-digit year and a 2-digit month. And that's it. Now I had a string which I could group by, and I could use that in my function field. It was no longer a date object. So I couldn't use it in a time series, but a multi-level pivot, it absolutely works. And then in the use case I actually had to use 2 dates. If there was, it was similar to having a resolve date and a close date. So I said, if there's a close date, use the close date. If there's not a close date, use the resolve date. And then whatever that is, give me only the first 7 characters. Super easy, super elegant, performs great. And I can use it in multi-level pivot. I can use it in anything. It's then giving me that string representation of the field. The only caveat might be in there is when you do truncate to month, it's using GMT or UTC as the time. So you can get a little bit of a time shift. I'm in US Pacific time, so the dates at the end of the month can shift, but ostensibly it worked out really well, performed well, easy to do. Again, we did a session on it because the key thing is to get function fields is there is a role that you have to have. And so for my report admins, for my power users, I give them that role so that they can create those fields. There's a lot more to it, but with coalesce, string concatenation, string substrings, so powerful to get a lot of those transformations in. And unlike calculated fields, I don't need to be a full admin, and I don't need to I don't have to take a performance hit from it. Also, it works well, and I may not do it for the dates. I'm not sure, but you can do the same thing. If you create the function field on your report, it is actually part of the table. You can use it in a filter, and you can use it in performance analytics. So I have started getting rid of some of my scripts that did minor transformations, and I made them. I put them as function fields on the table. So again, really powerful. There's a session on it. And actually, as I'm thinking too, I'll put the plug in. We were asking about NowExperience. We did a session on NowExperience. We've done a couple of them now in different aspects of it. But I would go back into the archive from our Performance Analytics Academy sessions, and you can find some of these topics talked about where we'll spend a whole hour on it. Okay,
so we're going to move over one because we're trying to find an answer to the next one about scheduled reports. But so quickly, we'll go to Dan. I think you're going to grab the how to add columns and list view from related lists, related tables.
Yeah, from related tables. That's the scenario. I think what we're talking about here is, when I'm just working in a list view, I only have available to me, unless I'm an admin, I only have available to me the columns or the fields that are on that particular table. So the issue there is so if I have an incident and I want to add some additional fields from the user table or something like that, the only way to do that as a non-admin would be using a list. So in a report, you could create a report that would where you can pull in dot walked fields. So I could dot walk to the user and get the information from them. Otherwise, you would need an admin to actually create a new layout view for the list, and from a new layout view that's global, that's system wide, you could then add additional fields if you wanted to. So, but otherwise, really the only way to do that would be a report. What I've done before is I've done a report and then put that report as a favorites in my navigation bar, so it's just there all the time.
And once the admin, if you need it, also if you need it, multiple people need it to do it. If the admin adds it to the list view, then every user can add it in and pull it in or not.
Good point.
So if it's something that just everybody needs, and I need to get the users department, it's something really common, your admin can do it in a couple clicks and an update set, push it out there, and then any user who wants it can then pull it in or not. And as Dan said, if I just need it, then I just create a report on it and I'm all set.
Great. Thank you, Dan and Adam. And Adam, do you want to speak to the schedule reports? I know that I
do want to speak to the schedule reports.
Yeah.
So a question came up. This will be a quick one because it's either going to take me an hour and a half, or a minute. So how do I schedule? How can I schedule reports to dynamically send only to the users listed in the report? There's a lot of steps to make this happen, but absolutely you can do it. We did a session on this on December 2nd. I'm looking at the archive right now. It's burst reporting. So if you go to the archives and search for the Burst Reporting Academy session, we talked about it for half an hour, 40 minutes. There's a lab on it from Knowledge. There's a lab on it. I think we did it in 21 is when we did the lab. Walks you through step-by-step how to do it, but we're going to leverage Flow Designer. And again, a couple steps to do. You will need an admin to help you do it, or developer. You need access to build the app to do it, but absolutely doable, efficient, clean, pretty low code. There's a little bit to set up the first time. And then if you want to do it, you can do it pretty straightforward. But again, December 2nd, 2020 is when we talked about that in the Academy session. So I'd go back and watch that one.
All right. So moving on, let's see. So is it possible to have PA widgets on Service Portal for an external user or external users? If so, how would that be done? Anybody on the panel?
I know we have some out of the box content related to Service Portal, and we have PA widgets embedded in those service portals. I think there's a little bit of a trick when it comes to getting them on there because it's not a drag and drop experience, but it is possible. I would suggest looking within the community. Actually, we could try to find the community article where someone put the easiest way to go about doing it. I know I've seen it before. I just can't recall it off the top of my head, but it is possible. It's just not a drag and drop.
It is almost drag and drop. I will add a link shortly to the docs how to do it. I just don't remember. Is it visible to the external users? That was
okay. Okay, good. Okay, good.
I don't like if you have no role. Will they see the PA data? If you logged in, you for sure will see it, and it's super easy. But if you are external, that one I don't remember.
Well, there's a difference too between external logged in and external not logged in. And I don't know if we have to make use of the external of the SNC external and SNC internal roles. But I seem to remember doing this, and we just had to add public as a role. And it didn't work. Or we might have used SNC external and external, which is logged in. So you do have to make sure you understand if you want it to be public or if you want it to just be external users who are logged in, that there is a difference there.
All right, great. Thank you. So there was a follow-up to the one that Dan had answered. So Dan, you can go ahead and answer that if you want.
Sure. I think it was just a question. It was more of a comment. And I think I just want to kind of basically confirm the comment, saying if an admin does what I suggested regarding the list layout. So this is adding columns that are in a related table, not in the specific table. So I think users would have to reset the default columns first, and that is true. So there is also the option of making it a separate list view, a predefined list view that a user could select from the list menu in the upper left. But generally what you're talking about, if I'm just doing like the personalized columns view as a user on a list view, if I hit that little gear to personalize columns, I would have to do a reset to default to be able to see the new version that the admin created of that list view. So that was a good clarification. That's a good clarification. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question that we have from Pierre is real-time indicators for PA. How does it work behind the scenes? Not from PA scores, I'm guessing. What's the impact on performance? What's a good, bad use case? Anybody on the panel want to grab it?
Yeah, the use case that I go to is P1s. I want the number of P1s. I'm trending a good number of information, but there is an indicator that the number of P1s I need to see right now. What it does in the background is it just runs the query, right? It's just, it is the equivalent of running a report. So if I have a single score report on the number of P1s, or I have a real-time indicator, I have the same thing overhead. And if I have a single score PA indicator with real-time, I'm running the report plus pulling the scores. Scores are, your milliseconds to pull those back. So it's not a big deal. So you could do it. There's a couple limitations in some of the widgets about where it comes back. So sometimes it isn't real time because we're just showing the trend. I think in the time series, it'll do that. If you need it to be real time, again, you're just running the report and PA together. That's the overhead. I think the restrictions are still scripted ones aren't supported real time. But if you need it, you need it. And if you don't turn it on, because you are then running that query live every time things are going, rather than just pulling back the scores.
Okay, so Daniel has another question, and he does relate it to the dependency that we talked about earlier. But it is, I have this issue where dashboards, including incident service breakdown jobs, were developed in prod for a lack of useful data in dev. Now we need to get those back to, and he clarified down, back to dev from prod. How can I go about doing that without risk of forgetting anything? Hence my question about dependency assessment. I know, not best practice, but.
So we're trying to get down, not up.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not as worried about things coming down. Ostensibly I would clone, or if I were building this out from scratch, I'd want to use an app, because then I can just grab the whole app and push it down, and grab everything I need. Yeah, and that, if that was the case, and for some reason I couldn't clone, so one, I'd go to a clone. Two, I'd use an app. Maybe, I don't know which one's 1 and 2. Either way I go. And then you could run the dependency and just pull it. And the same token, maybe I just grab everything. I just go in and grab all my indicator sources, the 7, 8 core PA tables. I just do a list export and import them all. It's a bit brute force, and there's potentially some error prone as we're going through it, but I do it. The problem with the dependency assessment really does come into, where do you stop? At what point does it become is it not dependent anymore? But if you wanted to, you could. I have less heartburn about doing it, pushing from prod to a sub-prod.
I want to add another point, and Daniel, if you would, if you could, you can respond in the Q&A. Is that the context that you're talking about? Because I was reading that as, I've put everything back into dev now through it via a clone. Now I want to take all the stuff that was cloned down into dev and add it into an update set, so that it can in the future be posted. I think that's what I thought the context was, but I'm not sure. Daniel, I just turned on your mic, so if you want to speak, you can as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
All right, cool. Yeah, so exactly, my thing is exactly that, so I need to push from prod down to dev, because even some users, some advanced users, have created their own dashboards. Some of them are interesting enough to, reuse. But now I have an outsider company that needs to create some data extraction code, and they want to work in dev. which I also agree to, but I need to move all of those dashboards. Well, not all of the dashboards, but 5 of my most important dashboards, including everything that's related to them. Hence my interest in using the tool, the dependency assessment tool, to create a list, and from there, create update sets to clone them down from prod to dev. But I heard the idea of copying over all of the PA tables. That could also be interesting if it will not break anything.
Well, it could break what's on dev, right? I mean, and regardless of what we're going to do, we have that problem. But yeah, I mean, the PA data is all metadata driven. Dashboards have a bunch of tables in there too. In your use case, I actually don't have a problem using the dependency assessment. It's not out of the box, but it is an API. It's going to return a bunch of JSON through it. None of this is going to be supported, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. Okay. But if I had to do it, I could see using the dependency, and you just pick the types you'd want to have. All that stuff comes back in there. And then if you looked at the export to update set, there's an API, I think, that goes through it that allows you to basically touch everything and put it in an update set. That could work. Yeah. I wouldn't go into prod, but into a sub prod, you could do it, particularly if you weren't worried about understanding there could be a broken field, right? It's
Correct.
Possible it's broken because they needed a script or something like that to come through. But if your master, if your production's good, that's okay. Again, for some of this stuff, I would look at just a clone to sync me back up. But if depending on that depends on what you are doing in your sub prod, and can you go back to prod? Right now, is there a bunch of work going on, or what the status is?
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan, Adam, and Daniel, for coming off mute and clarifying. So we're actually going to jump forward a little bit here because we've already talked about NowExperience a little bit. So I think it's good to go ahead and ask this since it's been discussed. So Robert-Jan is going to address when is classic UI being deprecated and replaced with NowExperience? This will probably need to drive our entire roadmap decision making going forward, starting now. Sorry to repost. It says this was answered, but this part wasn't specifically addressed. So Robert-Jan?
Yep. So the short answer is I don't think I haven't heard anything within the company talk about the core UI, classic UI deprecation. What we're currently in the phase of is building this NowExperience with the UI framework and with all its capabilities, and making sure that those apps can run there in a better user experience, future-proof way. I think, as we mentioned before, when also Tara was mentioning, I think we're currently at that state, at that phase where we would say, explore the new area, see what's there, see what's capable with using the UI framework, with using the UI builder, with using components, with maybe even adding your own components there, and see what you can build, see what you can use, see what you can use out of the box coming from the different workflow application teams, like, for example, agent workspace for CSM. Maybe parts of that are already usable, and for that specific area would allow you to sort of move over your workflows into the new area. But then again, also in parallel, a lot is still not there. We're still working on really getting it feature complete and feature improved. Specifically performance analytics, we're also not there yet. So the current state is, the current answer is there's no talking about classic UI deprecation. One of the things that's actually coming with San Diego, to give a little bit of a sneak into that one, is that we are also doing a big jump in user experience, and really elevating the web UI. We're doing that for the NowExperience platform as well as the classic UI, because we also think there are many capabilities, your users, all your users and yourself are using the classic UI. So you should also benefit with that same overall, that same visual improvement. And we're actually delivering features that sort of bridge the gap between the classic UI and the NowExperience platform in a better way, in a more seamless way.
And one thing I want to add on to what you're saying, Robert, so that we can kind of share, we are being completely transparent in the fact that we are trying to provide a better experience to our customers. At the same time, we're kind of working in two worlds at this point in time. So we want to be very clear that this is coming, and this is our goal, and we're working really, really hard to make this better experience. But at the same time, we have no expectations of just turning one thing off and then turning something on. We need to think about all of your situations and how we can make the transition seamless for you. So I don't want anyone to be afraid of what we're doing, because we are thinking about our existing customers as well as net new customers and how to make the experience work for everybody. So when we have a plan, we'll definitely be sharing it, and we can definitely bring something like that to this sort of forum.
Yep.
I just want to add one of the things, like look out in the coming release is we're working effectively to help you to consolidate, that you don't have to move right away, but at the same time you can create some new experiences using new technology, and your users will have an easy way to navigate between those, not having completely two worlds. So that kind of will give you an idea what you really need to move, because some things like you might be able just to keep for several releases until we have all the tools to help you move to just live in this just two different worlds, but they will feel like one for your users. Will still be two worlds for administrators, for you guys, but that's a downside for now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, all of you that were able to chime in on that one. Real quickly, Pierre, we're going to get to yours just one second. A couple of the other ones that are further down. So I want to get the count of incidents caused by each CI, because when CI is causing incident repetitively, it is called bad actor. Also, I should be able to view all the impacted applications of that CI. Is this possible in CMD Query Builder, or what is the best way to achieve it? So this is absolutely, you have the ability to do this in CMDB Query Builder, and that's actually where I would suggest doing it. And I actually did a K21 lab on this exact topic, and actually showed how you can look at or find the applications and also the CIs correlated with not only incident, but change and request as well. So I will get that link and put it here in the chat, and also I'll also put it into the community event as well. But this is definitely something that you can use CMDB Query Builder, and even a whole lot more that you can get out of that as well. So I know quite often people want to try to correlate CI and reporting of other things together, and this is the CMDB Query Builder is a really great tool that gives you that. And it is if you have access to it, there's specific roles, but you want to make sure that you have that first. But it's a drag and drop functionality, so it does make it a lot more simplistic to do that. A lot of times you are trying to work through exactly how to connect up all of those, the tables that you're pulling out. But again, there's a blog out there that talks about it. We did an academy session on it as well. And then, like I said, there is a K21 lab that's out there as well. And I'll make sure that I reference all of those in the community event as well. Paul, I'm going to save your question to the end. But Adam, I think that you were going to talk to Pierre's, right?
Yeah, so a question came in about we're going to have a two-part question with this about collection jobs and long-running data collectors. And when they take a long time, can we break them up? What should happen? And then specifically about load balancing with concurrent jobs. So with that, I don't want to talk about the load balancing. I will, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about why do we have long-running jobs? We shouldn't have a lot of long-running jobs. Pierre's saying that they're taking care of date collections, but the big thing I see is where people are collecting all indicators, all incidents, and then have a indicator additional condition that filters them out. We want to make sure that our indicator sources are as small as possible, that have just the data we want. And so generally we're going to do daily and maybe it's monthly, but I might even take a monthly and make it daily. You can always roll it up later, but that way I'm looking at a very small amount of data every day. The biggest case we will have is the number of open incidents. So we certainly have some customers who might have 10 or 20,000 open incidents at any given time. Just with the scale of the company, that'll work. It still shouldn't take a long time. The biggest issue I see with job collection times is scripts. Scripts take time. And so we really want to work on how do we get rid of those scripts so our jobs run faster. And the culprit I just see most often is a manual breakdown. Manual breakdowns are designed to be used with manual indicators. Automated indicators shouldn't have manual breakdowns. When we do that, we have to do a glide query. And if I have 10,000 records, 10,000 incidents open, and I have to do a glide query for each one, that job now has to run 10,000 queries. And even if we're a fraction of a second, 10,000 adds up, 50,000 adds up. So we really want to look at how do we get rid of scripts. And when we get rid of scripts, I know I had a vulnerability, security vulnerability job that was running in 8 hours. I think we ended up getting it down to 20 minutes. And then we weren't worried about concurrency. 20 minutes was fine. And it all had to do with scripts. We ran an academy session on how do you descript VA, and I'd really recommend looking at that. And scripts are easy, scripts are fast, doesn't mean they're good. There's a price to be paid, and there are more efficient ways of doing it. And particularly as we get into with function fields and then a few other techniques that we talked about in that PA session or in that academy session, we can get rid of those scripts and then these problems go away. That being said, for load balancing, it's a job. The main work of it is being done on the app node. The database side's pretty light. But what happens when we fire the job, the load balancer works. If you fire all the jobs at the same time, within the same couple seconds, they haven't gotten to the meat of the work yet. So they might all go to the same node because if I have, let's just say if I have 2 nodes, right, whether I have 2 or I have 20, I have 2 nodes, we send the work to the least busiest one. But if they all start at the same time, the least busiest one is the same one. And so it gets all this work and it blows up. Whether it's performance and particularly memory, it could be different considerations, but I'm most concerned about memory at some point. So if I'm going to break them apart, I do want to stagger by 2 or 3 minutes. And if I do that, then within a couple minutes into the job, it's kind of started and it's crunching away. So if there's a load balancing issue, it will balance correctly the way we want it to. So just make sure you don't fire them at the same second. Stagger them. Again, tune the job so they're only running a few minutes and as efficient as possible, and watch that PA Academy. Splitting the jobs, there's a bit of an art to it, but when you do split the jobs, we collect the data, or we process the data. It's based off that indicator source. We process all the indicators for the same indicator source at the same time. So if you have 5 indicators on the same indicator source, splitting them out is actually going to effectively give you 5 times the amount of work to do. Not going to benefit you anything. So if I am splitting them out, I'm going to group them by indicator source generally. There's a couple exceptions to that if it's super memory intensive, if I'm collecting count distincts or something like that. But I'll go group it by indicator source. And if you do group them by indicator source, you're actually better grouping them in one long job, because if I have 4 indicator sources, the indicator sources run serially. So it is as fast as it can go. It'll go on to the next one. If you parallelize it, you actually can get overlaps. You can get overloading what comes in. And I am not concerned about a PA job that runs for an hour. I mean, I don't like that. I'm going to tune it up. But if it needs to run for an hour, it runs for an hour. It's only using 1 semaphore. It's only 1 thread. It's not going to take down my instance. If I parallelize all of them, that's when we can run into issues, right? We want to balance that load. And serially is generally a fine way to do it. All right. That's my long ranting answer. I hope that covered what you want to do. But
great answer though, Adam.
I want to tune it up so that I'm not concerned about it. That is where we get the happiest path, is let's make it not run long.
That's the moral of the story ultimately, right? Yeah.
Awesome. So real quickly, a couple of things, Paul, first, Paul, you mentioned something in the chat, and you talked about that you enjoyed this session. I'm glad that we're all glad that we're able to do this, something like this. And I know that we're going to look at doing something like this maybe every 6 months on an Academy session, just to kind of give the ability to ask questions. I know sometimes all the questions don't get answered in a regular Academy session. So having this as sort of a cleanup to that, I think is a great idea. But you also asked about, would we ever think about doing a session where we would talk about advanced tips, tricks, and examples of different things that, maybe that we've learned along the way, and really good dashboards that are out there. I think that's a great session idea. So I'll definitely get that on the calendar, that we can do something like that. And hopefully, with all of the great gurus that we have, I'll have a lot of contribution into that. So we'll make it really good. And then the other question that you have about knowledge. So I think actually probably Adam may know better than anybody a great answer for this.
We'll all see. What does anybody know? My understanding is we are going to try and do something in person. I don't know what that'll look like, but there are plans to do certainly discussions about what can we do live. I think we all want to see you. We want to see each other. We want to see you, get a chance to talk in person. So hopefully we can do that. I'm sure there'll be some part that my guess is we're going to end up something with hybrid, where we do a little of both.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Adam. I know that you have more.
I was hoping, because I'd miss it.
Yeah, I think everybody does.
Yeah. Well, I remember the last one. I didn't. I was like, oh, when is this going to be over? It's the longest thing ever. But now, after a few years of not having it, it definitely is something to look forward to.
Maybe not in Florida. Anonymous, I don't know that anybody on this call is in a position to make that decision. So we'll just have to hope that we have one, and, wherever it's at, it'd be just great to see customers or whatnot. So, yeah. So need an ability to export multi-level pivots to Excel or a CSV file?
Frankly, we don't have the export to Excel directly from the report itself, from the multi-pivots. So the only option, so we only export to PDF, but that's not what you're asking for. And the only way to export to Excel is actually to pretty much drill down to the table itself and then export table to Excel or CSV. And from there, you can do exactly the same aggregation, more likely as you have on a multi-pivot. So it's two-step process, not one-click process.
And I think to add to this one, Olga, we hear it a lot, the need for that, and there's always this balance that we're trying to find, as in, okay, on the one hand, we're not really promoting export, because we hope that everything should or is possible in the platform, or should be possible in the platform. Then again, we also know it's not specifically indeed to where you ask, hey, this is a report with in-platform data that we already aggregated. Now I just want to sort of move it to Excel to maybe do some additional things that are not possible. So it's always the balance, like, are we adding those capabilities to our reporting ways in platform, or should we do it to just allow something like this? And I think we are expanding continuously on our export capability, as far as I see it. I'm not sure where this one fits specifically for multi-level pivot, but yeah, let's see where it fits.
And I'll say that, going back to what we had with the date multi-level pivot, I used to have to export stuff out and do pivots because I needed to do some transformation, and we couldn't do it with the use of function fields. My need to export went down considerably. So that doesn't, as Brkdwn said, there are some other use cases that need to go out for it, but make sure you're using function. Like, I want to know why we're going to Excel, and can we do it with the function field so it's repeatable live all the time? That is, we do want to help you do what you need to do, but we also want to understand, can we help you do it better with live secure data? That is our go-to. If I had to do it today, it depends on the size of your multi-level, but I might be able to do something with a remote table to format the data the way that I want it. There's one, you need to be an admin to do it, and two, you're limited to 1,000 rows that come back. But if I'm doing a pivot, hopefully I don't have more than 1,000. But there might be some things you can do if this was on a regular basis and you need to get it out. I think there are ways to do it, but it's just not as easy as create a report and export it to Excel yet.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So we only have a couple more minutes left. So we're going to go ahead and close up. But first, let me say thank you to all of the panelists that were able to join today. And like I said, for those that are in Amsterdam, I appreciate in the late hour of the day you joining on. And, you know, Dan and Tara and Adam, I appreciate it as well. This was a great session and a lot of good questions came out of it and answers. And obviously, you know, there's going to be more questions that come about. So continue to use the community as you can for those and hopefully they'll get answered. And like I said, we'll do another one of these, you know, probably 6 months from now, you know, May, June timeframe or something like that. But in closing real quick, so let me go through this. So again, I mean, we talked about the community a lot today. There's a lot of great things in the community, and this is sort of derived from that. So make sure that you use the community. There's good information that's out there. And specifically the analytics, intelligence and reporting page, which has good, really good information and where you can ask a question as well. A lot of questions out there. So if you have a question, make sure you search first. Your answer may have already be out there in another question. So check that out. Make sure that you look at Now Learning. There's great training in there. There's some K-21 labs out that are still out there. And I actually think maybe there's still some K-20, I don't know, but do that, you know, go there and look for all of your training needs. Other sessions that you may be interested in that are out there: platform foundations, mobile app, and virtual agent. Here's the links to those. So it's always good to be diverse in the knowledge that you have. So if there's, you should check out these other ones if you have time as well. And then if you're going to ask a question, I always like to show this. If you're going to ask a question, there is a really good way of doing that. And this article talks about the way that you can do that to ask really great questions to make sure that you get the answer that you need. So maybe check that. If you never asked a question in the community before, maybe check that out prior to doing that. And then this is just kind of a follow-up to everything that I just said. So all of this information will be out later in the same event. I'll put it all out on YouTube and get the video uploaded and all that information. So it'll be out there later. And then 2 weeks from now, we're going to have the next session is tuning solutions for reporting, which is going to be a really great one, and talk about how if you have any sort of latency issues with some of your reporting, maybe some things for you to look at. So this would be a really great session as well on November the 3rd. So with that, again, thank you all for joining, both customers and panelists, and have a great day. Thank you.